The Amazu kingdom was shrouded in sorrow as they laid King Aasir to rest. The weight of the kingdom's future now rested on the young shoulders of his only son, Prince Aasir, who would be crowned in 2 weeks' time, to take over the throne as king after his father's death. The air was heavy with expectation, yet unease settled among the people. Prince Aasir, only 21 years old, was known for his compassion and adventurous spirit, but his recent outings into the forest had left him troubled, though he spoke little of it. The people of Amazu hoped that his ascension to the throne would mark a new era of peace and prosperity. As dawn broke one fateful morning, the prince did not emerge from his chambers. By midday, concern turned into fear as the queen herself rushed to check on him. She found him unable to wake, his body lifeless except for his shallow breathing. The kingdom was about to face its greatest challenge. Panic swept through the palace as the news of Prince Aasir's mysterious condition spread. The council of elders gathered immediately, their faces pale with worry. Speculation ran wild, some whispered of illness, others hinted at foul play. The queen summoned the great seer, Baba Gati, who examined the young prince. The seer's expression darkened as he revealed the grim truth. Prince Aasir had inhaled an evil enchanted smell, possibly during one of his solitary trips to the forest. According to Baba Gati, Prince Aasir was caught in a state between life and death, half asleep, half awake. If the antidote wasn't found within 3 market days, the prince would slip into the eternal sleep of death. The only hope lay in the mythical leaf of life, hidden deep within the enchanted forest of Zuria. When the seer spoke of the enchanted forest, a chill ran through the crowd. Tales of the forest dangers were legendary: evil spirits, giant serpents, and, most terrifying of all, the great sorcerer Ojwang, its feared guardian. Yet, hope for the kingdom rested on retrieving the leaf of life. King Aasir's younger brother, Prince Amazu, said, "Can the leaf of life really be found? Who in his right senses will want to risk his life to go into such a forest without any chance of coming back alive?" Ojwang, the kingdom's fiercest warrior who was also the late king's personal guard, stepped forward. His loyalty to Prince Aasir was unquestionable. "I will go," he declared, his voice steady. "I promised late King Aasir that I will protect his son, Prince Aasir." Behind him, Gakiri and Jichinga, 2 of the kingdom's bravest warriors, also pledged to join the perilous mission. As preparations began, a surprising voice joined the volunteers: Njeri, Ojwang's daughter, a skilled warrior in her own right. Njeri is Ojwang's only child. She has been trained by her father from the age of 4, till she is now 19 years old. She is the best bow and arrow warrior in Amazu kingdom, but her father Ojwang has always felt she was not ready, and he is not willing to lose her, as she is the only person that reminds him of his late wife, Umo, who died due to illness. Though her father protested, the great seer insisted. "She has an essential role in this quest," Baba Gati said. With heavy hearts, the 4 warriors prepared to face the dangers ahead. As the morning sun rose over Amazu, the palace courtyard was filled with a quiet intensity. The warriors gathered their weapons and supplies, their faces set with determination. The people of Amazu lined the streets, offering prayers for their safe return. Njeri stood among the seasoned warriors, her hand on the hilt of her sword, with her bow and arrows tied very well at her back, ready for whatever lay ahead. The queen approached Ojwang, her voice trembling with both fear and gratitude. "Bring back the leaf of life," she whispered. He nodded solemnly, his heart heavy with the weight of his promise. The queen went over to Njeri. She took off her necklace and gave it to Njeri. "This necklace is priceless. I pray it protect you, I know how much you care about Aasir. I pray the gods go with you." The warriors knelt before her, pledging their lives to the mission. As they departed, a wave of uncertainty swept over the crowd. Behind the brave faces of the warriors, each one carried their own fears. The path to the enchanted forest was long and treacherous, and none knew what awaited them there. The dense jungle loomed ahead, its thick canopy casting long shadows over the narrow path. Every step was filled with the rustling of leaves and the occasional snap of twigs underfoot. The forest was alive, but not in the way one might expect. There was something unnatural about it, an unsettling energy in the air. Gakiri, always the most perceptive of the group, paused as they passed a large twisted tree. "We are being watched," he whispered. Ojwang's grip tightened on his spear, and Jichinga, always the skeptic, scoffed. "Ghost stories," he muttered. But Njeri felt it too, the sense of eyes following them through the trees. As they moved deeper into the wild, the atmosphere grew heavier. Strange animal calls echoed through the forest, but none that any of them recognized. They pressed forward, knowing that turning back was no longer an option. The deeper they ventured, the closer they came to the enchanted forest of Zuria. It was just past noon when the first obstacle presented itself, a wide river, its waters dark and fast-moving. The river cut through the path, its current too strong to swim across. On the other side, the path continued, but no bridge or boat was in sight. "We could try to find a way around," suggested Jichinga, but Ojwang shook his head. Time was of the essence, and detours would only delay them. Njeri, ever observant, spotted something. "Look there," she said, pointing to a series of vines hanging over the river. They were thick and sturdy, possibly strong enough to hold their weight. But swinging across such a fast-moving river was risky. One misstep, and they could be swept away. "I'll go first," Ojwang declared, gripping the vine tightly. He swung across the river with grace, landing safely on the other side. One by one, the others followed, their hearts pounding with each leap. Njeri was the last to cross, her hands steady as she soared above the water. They had made it, but they knew this was only the beginning. As the warriors regrouped on the other side of the river, an eerie silence descended upon the forest. The trees seemed to close in around them, their branches gnarled and twisted like the fingers of an ancient beast. Every movement, every sound, felt amplified in the stillness. Suddenly, a figure darted through the trees, too fast to be human, but too large to be any animal they knew. Gakiri raised his spear, his eyes scanning the forest for any sign of the creature. "Stay close," Ojwang ordered, his voice low. Whatever was stalking them was fast, but it hadn't attacked yet. Njeri's heart raced. She could feel the presence of something malevolent, lurking just beyond the trees. They moved quickly, keeping their eyes on the shadows that flitted between the branches. Whatever was following them, it wouldn't stay hidden for long. Night fell, and the warriors set up camp in a small clearing. A fire crackled in the center, casting flickering shadows on their tense faces. Njeri sat by the fire, sharpening her blade, while Ojwang and Gakiri kept watch. The forest was unevenly quiet, as though holding its breath. Without warning, the silence was shattered by a high-pitched screech. From the darkness, a monstrous creature leapt into the clearing, a twisted, skeletal beast with glowing red eyes. Its claws slashed through the air, narrowly missing Jichinga as he rolled out of the way. The warriors sprang into action, weapons drawn. Ojwang lunged at the creature, his spear striking its hide. But the beast was fast, dodging his attack. Gakiri circled around, looking for an opening. with a swift strike. He slashed at its legs, causing it to stumble. Njeri saw the opening she needed and fired some arrows into the beast. Together, the warriors fought as one, their movements synchronized in the heat of battle. After a fierce struggle, the beast lay dead at their feet. But the victory was bittersweet. They knew there would be more. As dawn broke, the group continued their journey, their minds heavy with the memory of the night's battle. The forest grew darker as they neared the heart of Zuria. The trees twisted and gnawed like the limbs of ancient giants. The atmosphere was thick with magic, a palpable force that weighed on their spirits. Without warning, the forest seemed to shift around them, the trees closing in like a living labyrinth. Every step was cautious, every sound suspicious. The air was thick with tension, and their senses were on high alert. Suddenly, Jichinga cried out as the ground beneath him gave way, a hidden pitfall lined with sharp spikes. He managed to grab the edge just in time, his knuckles white as he struggled to pull himself up. Ojwang rushed to his aid, hauling him back to safety. As they moved forward, they encountered more traps, poisonous vines that snapped at their ankles, quicksand that nearly swallowed Gakiri whole. Each obstacle chipped away at their strength, but they refused to turn back. The leaf of life was their only hope. They were to pass 3 gates in the enchanted forest to get to the leaf of life. As they got closer to the first gate, night fell once again. The winds began to howl through the trees, carrying with them strange whispers. The warriors huddled around the fire, each lost in their thoughts. The constant danger weighed heavily on them, but it was the voices in the wind that unnerved them the most. "Do you hear that?" Njeri asked, her eyes wide. The others nodded, straining to make out the words. The whispers seemed to come from every direction, taunting and teasing, speaking in a language none of them understood. But the message was clear: they were not welcome in this part of the forest. Gakiri stood abruptly, his hand on his sword. "We need to move," he said. But as they gathered their things, the wind picked up, swirling around them like a storm. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. It was as if the forest itself was trying to drive them away. They pressed forward, though their nerves were frayed. By dawn, they reached the edge of a vast valley, its floor shrouded in mist. They were standing in front of the first gate. They entered the gate. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and strange twisted figures moved in the fog below. "The Valley of Lost Souls," Ojwang murmured, recalling the old legends. "Once you enter, the souls of the dead will try to claim you as one of their own." The group hesitated, but there was no other way. They had to cross the valley to reach the heart of the forest. "Stay behind me," Ojwang ordered his daughter Njeri, as she gripped on her sword tightly. "Let's go," he said. They descended into the valley, the mist swallowing them whole. As they moved through the fog, the shadows began to take shape. Figures of long-forgotten warriors and villagers reached out to them, their hollow eyes filled with despair. "Don't stop," Ojwang warned, his voice low. But it was hard to ignore the cries of the lost souls, begging for release. As they neared the center of the valley, a towering figure appeared before them, draped in tattered royal robes. His face was gaunt, his eyes burning with an unnatural light. "I am King Tabari, ruler of this land long before your time," the spirit intoned. "You seek the leaf of life, but it will not be given freely." Ojwang stepped forward, meeting the king's gaze. "We will earn it, no matter the cost," he said firmly. The spirit smiled, a grim expression that sent a chill down their spine. "Very well," he said. "But first, you must prove your worth." The ground beneath their feet rumbled, and the valley itself seemed to shift. The king raised his hand, and a path of stone appeared, leading deeper into the mist. "Follow the path," he commanded. "But beware, the dead do not take kindly to the living." As they followed the path, the mist grew thicker, and the cries of the lost souls became deafening. Shadows lunged at them from every direction, their cold fingers grasping for any sign of life. Ojwang swung his sword, cutting through the spectral figures, but they always returned. Gakiri stumbled as a particularly strong spirit latched onto him, its icy grip pulling him toward the ground. "Help!" he shouted, struggling to break free. Ojwang and Jichinga rushed to his side, pulling him away from the spirit's grasp just in time, as Njeri stood guard looking around for their safety. "We can't keep fighting them off forever," Njeri said, breathing heavily. "We need to find a way through." Ojwang nodded, scanning the mist for any sign of an exit. But the path seemed to stretch on endlessly, and the spirits grew more aggressive with each step. Just when it seemed the warriors were at their limit, the mist parted to reveal a small clearing. In the center stood a lone figure, a young woman dressed in ancient armor, her eyes glowing with an ethereal light. "I can guide you," she said softly, her voice like the wind. "But there is a price." "What do you want?" Ojwang asked, wary of making any deals with the dead. The spirit smiled, her gaze flickering between the warriors. "One of you must stay behind," she said simply. "A life for a life. Only then will the path to the leaf of life be revealed." The warriors exchanged uneasy glances. None of them were willing to sacrifice one of their own, but without the spirit's guidance, they would be lost in the valley forever. Njeri stepped forward, her eyes steady. "We'll find another way," she said firmly. The spirit's smile faded, and the mist began to close in once more. As the mist thickened around them, Ojwang made a bold decision. He raised his spear and plunged it into the ground, calling out to the spirits with a commanding voice, "We do not come to disturb your rest, but to save a life. Let us pass, and your memory will be honored in Amazu for generations to come." For a moment, the spirits hesitated, their wails softening as if considering his words. The young woman's eyes flickered, her expression shifting from anger to something like sorrow. "If you wish to break the curse of this valley," she said, "you must prove that your intentions are pure." The ground trembled, and a stone altar rose from the earth. Upon it lay a dagger, its blade gleaming with an unnatural light. "Blood binds the living to the dead," the spirit said. "Offer a token of your loyalty, and you may pass." Ojwang stepped forward, his hand steady as he made the offering, using a drop of his blood as the oath, sealing their pact with the lost souls. With the curse broken, the mist began to lift, revealing a narrow path that led out of the valley. The warriors wasted no time, eager to leave the land of the dead behind. As they climbed the steep hillside, the air grew warmer, and the oppressive energy of the valley faded. At the top of the hill, they gazed out over the heart of the forest. In the distance, they could see the shimmering canopy of Zuria, the enchanted forest where the leaf of life was hidden. It was beautiful, but dangerous. The trees glittered in the sunlight, their leaves golden and silver, but beneath the surface lay the threat of ancient magic. "We're close," Njeri said, her voice filled with both relief and dread. But as they descended into the forest, they knew their trials were far from over. As they approached the second gate, they encountered a three-headed giant anaconda snake. The snake stood at the far end of the enchanted forest. They looked like dwarfs to the giant anaconda. As the three snake heads joined together and become one head, other anaconda snakes appeared, moving toward the warriors to attack them. The warriors fought back, and killed the snakes. For every snake they killed, it would turn into a mystical smoke, and after a while, it turns back to snakes again. Njeri was very skillful with her bow and arrow, killing most of the snake before they came close, but finally she ran out of arrows and took out her sword to fight. Ojwang asked her to come behind him as he fight with his spear. As the fight intensified, Njeri was bitten by one of the snakes and he died instantly. The fight raged for hours and they realized they could not win the fight as the snakes were so many, and every snake they killed kept coming back to life. Ojwang shouted, "Njeri, cover me, we need to kill the queen snake." Njeri stepped forward and Njeri stood by her father, as Ojwang took his spear, aimed it carefully at the snake queen, then he threw it. The spear went straight to the heart of the snake and pierced the snake. Immediately, the snake disappeared, leaving mystical smoke all over the place, and all the snakes that attacked them vanished at once. The danger was over, but they knew that something else was coming. There was no time to wait and mourn Njeri, who has just lost his life to the snakes. "We need to keep moving," Ojwang shouted, sensing that they were still in danger. Story ends. Do you think that the warriors will retrieve the leaf of life? Or will they die one by one in the mystical forest? The story has just begun. Watch out for part 2. Moral of the story so far: it's better to die trying than to die not knowing if you might actually make it. I remain Uncle Sam. Stay safe.